Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families. At ABL, our mission is not only about celebrating and sharing fabulous Australian and Indigenous authored books of all genres with readers around the globe, it's about finding fantastic resources and information for authors looking to write their own book or two or three. And what better resource than getting into the writer's room with some of those authors and asking them to share their experience. This is episode 149. I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, author of fantasy, science fiction, memoir and picture books. And I'm here tonight on Wairung Country with my co-host.
Yes, I'm Laurie Bell, science fiction and fantasy author, middle grade. I'll throw that one in right now because that's important for later. Yes. Middle grade, but also adult and YA and short stories and flash fiction and a bit of everything in between. So we have the most amazing people we have.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Tonight on our writer's room. I'm very excited.
It's good. Yes. In fact, we're diving into the wonderful writing worlds of authors Eileen O'Hely. Did I say that right now?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Excellent. Rosie Schonell and Ingrid Laguna, all of whom write, amongst other things, for middle graders. And if you don't know what a middle grader is, in Australia, that's about an 8 to 12-year-old, more or less, give or take a little bit, depending on the writers. So welcome to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely. So, Eileen, would you like to tell us whose traditional country you're on tonight?
I'm on the country of the Turrbal and the Yuggera people.
Excellent.
In Brisbane.
And we've already decided it's a little bit warmer up there, but you've got to jump on, so we appreciate it. Perfect. Rosie, whose country are you on tonight?
I'm on the land of the Gadigal country.
Excellent. So you're up in Sitters, which we're okay. We'd like Sydney people, New South Wales people to be here. We know Melbourne's better, but you know. So therefore, we're leading into, finally, Ingrid, whose country are you on tonight?
I'm on the land of the Wurundjeri people, and
beautiful.
I'm in Coburg in Melbourne.
Coburg, yes.
Coburg.
Coburg, love Coburg. My nan used to live there when I was first married many years ago. So just near Batman Station, so know it well. Grew up in Pascoe, northern suburbs. Child, all right. We're going to start the episode with me speaking too much and Laurie speaking too much, but basically what we'd like to do is to read people's bio and their latest book, because I know a number of you have more than one book. So please bear with us, listeners, while we introduce you to Eileen O'Hely. So Dr. Eileen O'Hely is a science communicator, award-winning children's writer and literary competition judge. Her work has been translated into Korean, Turkish, Chinese, Lao, Burmese, Vietnamese and Tetun, which I looked up, and it is East Timorese?
Yes.
More or less? Yes. Yep. Beautiful. Lovely. So her Kitten Caboodle series is on the Premier's Reading Challenge in several Australian states. She is an alumna of Playlab's Incubator program, and her theatre script, Just Desserts, was shortlisted for the Lane Cove Literary Award. Eileen donates picture book and graphic novel text to not-for-profit Library for All. Her locative fiction stories are available on Brisbane City Council's Outdoor Reads app. Eileen holds a double degree in Arts and Science with honours from Melbourne Uni and a PhD in Astrophysics from the University of New South Wales, not content with just one. Her day jobs have included university tutor, English teacher, website producer, sports journalist. She's currently a presenter at the Sir Thomas Brisbane Planetarium. Oh, I would love that job.
It's a good job.
And it is a good job. Excellent. Yeah. And her collaborative full dome show with recording artist K-Mac has appeared in planetariums around the country and will be performed at the 2025 Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I'd also like to go there. So anyway, a little bit of envy happening on my part. Eileen holds a blue card and delivers readings and writing workshops at schools, libraries and festivals, and she'll be the keynote speaker for Vastrock 2025, which I forgot to look that up. What's Vastrock, Eileen? Tell us.
It's the Victorian Astronomical Society. So every 2 years they have a big meeting of all the astronomical societies in Victoria. And yeah, so that happened at the beginning of August. And I had very bad imposter syndrome because I was looking at all the other speakers, and there was a full-time guy who does astronomy outreach and education and manages this thing across the world. It's really amazing. And another guy who does a lot of Indigenous astronomy, someone else who lectures at the University of the Third Age. And I was thinking, oh, I'm going to do a puppet show for them. Let's see how that goes.
You have just heard your bio that I've just read. I think imposter syndrome out the window.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Because not only does Eileen live in Brisbane with her husband, 3 children, but she also does tap dancing. She squeezed us in between tap dancing classes. So thank you, Eileen, for a brilliant bio. I'm going to tell you the blurb for 50 Ways to Die in Space. Now, I've told several people about this this book.
I love the
and they're
cover.
going, oh, that's great. And in the video, we'll pop the book cover up so that everybody can see it.
Yep.
Nothing beats the romance of gazing up at the sky on a starry night. If you're far away from the city, you can even see the faint nebulae of the Milky Way, the Magellanic Clouds, and, depending on the time of the year, the Orion Nebula. We think of space as beautiful, and it is. But like belladonna, also known as deadly nightshade, space's beauty doesn't make it any less deadly. 50 Ways to Die in Space presents both sides of this deadly beauty, personified by 2 little cartoon characters. One marvels at the majesty of the cosmos, while the other earnestly explains what the extreme environments in space would do to an unprotected human body. The tongue-in-cheek graphic novel will delight children and adults alike with the characters' banter and the drawings of all the ways an errant space traveller can meet an untimely demise. The essential grossness is presented humorously. You could avoid dying of radiation sickness by taking off your helmet. Important misconceptions presented by Hollywood are seamlessly addressed and explained. Although you do instantly fry to a crisp when exposed to intense heat, since space is a vacuum, you would freeze to death very slowly. Through its non-didactic nature, children reading the book will learn about astrophysics and physiology through osmosis, and also the true meaning of Shangri-La. Well, that is just fantastic, Eileen. And I did astronomy in what was in the olden days HSC, Form 6, out in Broadmeadows, trying to find, a non-lit place. I have always had a little bit of a yen, love science fiction. So what a brilliant book.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think one of the best reviews I saw likened it to Horrible Histories in Space. And straight away you had me. That was all I needed. Yes, let me jump into telling you a little bit about Rosie Schonell. So Rosie has a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Special Education. She has taught English at all levels in schools and specialised in teaching students with learning difficulties. She also volunteers at schools and organisations that teach reading, including teaching newly arrived adult migrants. She loves the game of pickleball, outrigging on Pittwater, and volunteers as a crisis supporter at Lifeline. Rosie lives with her husband and has 3 adult children she's raised to love books as much as she does. She spends her time between Balmain and the northern beaches of Sydney. And let me tell you about this amazing book. So, Breaking School Rules is Easy, which, how good is that as a title?
Brilliant title, yes.
Yes. So, for Billy and Minty, breaking school rules is easy, but solving a centuries-old mystery is the real challenge. In debut author Rosie Schonell's nail-biting middle grade mystery, we're introduced to 2 strong-willed protagonists who set out on an intriguing adventure in the grounds of their school, Mirrabooka Girls College. Faced with an old school legend and a missing treasure, the sleuths are compelled to solve the cryptic clues and unlock past secrets. Ghosts, ancient keys, grizzly dogs, riddles, paper maps, spooky cemeteries, and blood-sucking leeches. The girls face it all as they try to uncover the Abercrombie family curse in the haunted house Ravenswatch. I'm in love. Rosie says every schoolgirl wants to be a detective at some point. At that age, everything is exciting, and the idea of solving a mystery is especially appealing. There's something about the curiosity and determination of kids that makes them perfect detectives. I agree with that. The middle-aged author subtly weaves relevant themes into Breaking School Rules is Easy, including the threat of climate change and bushfires, the importance of wearing sunscreen, and schoolgirls being able to wear shorts instead of skirts. Yes, yes, yes. The importance of friendship, and that school grades are not the only measure of who you are. How good is this book? Oh, we've got so many great writers tonight.
We have. And, you know, last but certainly not least, Ingrid Laguna is an award-winning author and educator. Her books include Songbird, Sunflower, Serenade for a Small Family, Bailey Finch Takes a Stand, which was awarded Best Chapter Book and overall primary resource winner in the 2022 Educational Publishing Awards, and Kit and Arlo Find a Way, which won the same awards in 2023. Her writing is featured in various publications, including The Monthly, The Age, and AEU magazine. She regularly presents to teachers and students at schools, libraries, festivals, and conferences. We'll hear more about that shortly. As a percussionist, singer, and songwriter, Ingrid has toured Europe. I had to get this off your website, Ingrid. I just had to. Has toured Europe, Asia, and Australia, and taken percussion and songwriting workshops with performance group Ruby Fruit Jungle. She supported Led Zeppelin's Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, playing at Australia's biggest entertainment venues. So, you know, no, what is it? No, what is it? What's the thing? What did you say, Eileen?
I'm having imposter syndrome now. Oh my God.
Absolutely no imposter syndrome here, please.
I sound like I'm about 70.
And you look like you're about 15, so you're doing really well. All right. In the Australian film industry, Ingrid worked as a crew member on numerous television commercials, a telemovie, and a short film. While in Central Australia, she directed the Northern Territory Youth Film Festival and was integral to the Kunga Career Conference for Aboriginal Women, the Indigenous Music Awards, and music programs for Aboriginal youths. Further to her Master of Teaching Studies at the University of Melbourne, Ingrid has spent many years working with migrant and refugee children. And I've got in here in brackets Wallace and Laguna Improv, which we will cover later. Let's give you the blurb for Edie Tells a Lie. Edie lives with her mum. It's just the two of them. Her best friend, Bowie, lives right next door until Bowie moves to the country. I'm going to say, is that after David Bowie? You know, can I just sneak that bit in there?
I just love the name. I don't even, you know, sometimes a name just comes out of nowhere into your brain.
And it's just there, and they name themselves,
and you just
don't
like
they?
it.
Yep.
Yep.
Fair enough. All right. Edie feels alone and forgotten, but she soon meets Aleki, and she's happy to have a new friend. Aleki has a big family with lots going on all the time. Edie wishes she had a big, interesting family too. So she invents a story, a lie. It's only a small story, but it soon grows and it lands her in trouble. Suddenly, Edie is lonelier than ever. But then she finds a mysterious letter in an old book. It's written in Polish, the language of her dad's family, and Edie discovers she has a famous great aunt who lived a remarkable life with wild animals in a forest in Poland. Edie is proud of her Polish heritage, and she wants to tell her classmates about her amazing auntie. But after her lie, will anyone believe her? Edie Tells a Lie is a heartfelt story about friendship and family, loneliness, and the consequences of making a mistake. There you go. Another fabulous story.
Quite a journey, that one. That was probably, I know you haven't just asked me anything, but
go jump into it.
Well, it was a really challenging book for me to write. It's actually inspired by, I got the idea came from my father finding out about his father, who actually was a sort of a fighter pilot in the Battle of Britain in the Second World War. And my dad was finding out, because he died when my dad was very young. And he was finding out about him, and he was very moved, and I was moved. This is my grandfather. And it's just that idea of what our ancestors mean to us and what our cultural heritage and what ancestry is. But also I thought about, what can it mean to a child, to a young person finding out? And can it, because it made me feel more whole. There was kind of a sense of, it felt like I was more, because I was more connected to Poland, where my father comes from. And also I feel the same way about my Dutch ancestry on my mum's side. So I wanted, I decided, basically the story is inspired by a true person, Simona Cossack, who's this fascinating, amazing woman who lived in a forest. She was born in 1941, and she lived in a forest in Poland, an abandoned hut, no electricity or running water, in a forest between Belarus and Poland for 30 years, with a wild boar in her hut and a lynx, and there's photos, and she's amazing. So I basically made it that this was her great aunt, but it's the first time I've included nonfiction or a true history in a story. And my editor had to say to me more than once, don't let the tail wag the dog. This is Edie's story. And I also had included Polish history about the Solidarity movement. I went off on these tangents. Yeah, there's my last sentence of the acknowledgements. I have to just share this with you.
Yes.
This was a tough book to write at a complex time in my life. There was that as well. I would like to acknowledge the tiny knuckle of determination within myself that kept me returning to my desk. So yes, well done, me.
Yay!
I
Good on
love
you.
that.
But it was
Nicely
just
done.
hard. I find some books come easily. They take 6 weeks, or I've had one that did that. This one took me 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you, Rosie and Eileen, if that's similar, but every book is just so different to the experience.
That's a great jumping off point, because we can go along, I think, to Rosie now. Tell us what inspired your middle grade book.
Well, look, I wanted to write a story that could give a lot of like a message to children, middle graders, about, first of all, about facing your fears. Like if you face your fears, you'll become empowered, especially for anxious children. That's, they really need to learn that lesson. And then also, with the stress that children are on today, with getting into selective schools and OC classes and, everything's about grades, that I wanted them to understand that, you're not the sum of just your marks, and that you all have other traits that are really important that aren't necessarily celebrated in a school setting. You've all got your little box of, I call a little box of tools. So, some people are just really kind or positive or have a go-get-'em attitude. And, when the kids, for example, don't get into their class or don't get their, their spot in a selective school, what do you tell them? You have to be able to. So I want them to learn through storytelling that there's other things that are, just as important. And getting great marks is not necessarily going to mean that you are going to have this wonderful, happy life, because you've got so many things inside you that can lead to a good and happy life. So I sort of came up with a story that I wanted to have the protagonists, be able to, express that through my storytelling. So, and then I wrote about a mystery, because that's my favorite genre. As I said, every 12-year-old wants to think that they can find a mystery in their school or their neighborhood. And I wanted it set in Australia, because I just find the Australian bush is so evocative, and it's alluring, and it's, you're not supposed to go in there, but, it's unforgiving. So, I decided to set in Australia and then bring in all the Australian things, and, set them up on a quest where they could, in the end, their go-to attitude and facing their fears, was let them get their goals in the end.
Beautiful. Ingrid.
I'd love to ask you a question, Rosie. I just love that messaging so much for young people, that your marks and being graded on your numeracy and literacy are so misleading so much of the time, and it just seems so outdated to me. Can I ask, so does your protagonist not get, like, in relation to that aspect, does your protagonist not get sort of those marks, and that how you do that messaging, or how does that come across?
Yeah, so I don't know whether I can give away the end of the story.
No spoilers, but
yeah. Yeah, sorry.
So the protagonist doesn't have those qualities, but has amazing other qualities which they get celebrated for along the way. So
right,
and that comes out from that character. And the other character, who's very anxious, faces all these amazing quests that she overcomes, and at the end, you see how her character has grown as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
And Eileen, I'm going to throw in my imposter syndrome. One of my best friends at school became an astrophysicist, and I work in admin. So I totally understand a feeling of, oh my goodness, but you're introducing science to kids
Yes.
is a brilliant way to do it. And as I say, who doesn't love How Many Ways to Die? So, so tell us, how did you come up with this idea?
I did not come up with it. I'd just done a Halloween show at the planetarium. It was called Trick or Treat Through the Milky Way. And I was having dinner at my publisher's house. She'd invited all the authors for a big dinner party. And she said, "What did you do today?" And I said, "Did this thing at the planetarium." And my husband said, "What you should have done is all the ways that you can die in space." And my publisher said, "Can you write that book?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I could write that book, but I'm not going to." And then I thought about it and I thought, I know all the environments in space, like whether that's noxious gases or extreme heat, complete lack of anything. But I thought, what does it actually physically do to your body? And I thought I'd like to investigate that. And I've never done biology. It's squishy. I faint at the sight of blood. So it was interesting learning all the physiology about it. And then it just came as an idea of two people having a conversation, and one person totally enamored by space, loves it, would love to go there. And the other one's like, "Well, if you go there, you will die," and explaining exactly how that would happen. And it just went from there. And it was just very snappy dialogue. And I thought, I don't even have names for these characters. So the only way it's going to work is if it's a graphic novel. And I explained that to the publisher, and she was happy with it. So we actually ended up enlisting a student at that point in time from my children's high school. They have an arts excellence program, and I approached the teacher there to see if any current or past students or staff would be interested. And we just really love the style of the illustrator that we chose in the end.
Brilliant.
And it works really well together, and we do the puppet show really well together too.
So this is Nico O'Sullivan, yes?
Yes, Nico
Both of
O'Sullivan.
you with an O name, very handy.
Well, that was another thing. It's like two
meant to
O
be.
apostrophes would be awesome.
And what a brilliant start to somebody's career as an illustrator.
Yeah.
Get that
yeah.
kind of straight out of school, yeah.
Mm.
The last episode we spoke with the Jacksons and Maya Graham about their graphic novel, which is a mystery, the Brownout Murders, which has happened in Melbourne and Parkville. There was a serial killer. Can you believe it, in Melbourne? I didn't know anything about that. But again, we're a graphic novel, so somebody working with their idea and their words, and then it's just the illustrator bringing it to life. So what was that experience like for you, Eileen?
So I'd written one graphic novel before, which was Library for All, which is a non-profit, and their aim is to lift children out of poverty by giving them resources so that they learn to read. And so they have some Australians writing the books, but their preference is to go to the particular countries, educate people who live in the countries on writing books, so that then they have true books from they're seeing their own story. And I've even had books not just translated from one language to another, but the illustrations have been translated as well, because a bathroom in Papua New Guinea looks different to a bathroom in Laos. So that sort of thing is really cool. So they were doing some natural disaster books. So I did one on fire, and I asked them, "What sort of format do you want?" They said, "Oh, whatever you do." But coming up with an illustrator brief for this. So I had just my dialogue, and I had different colors for the different characters because they don't have names. And then I had another column which had a description of each frame, and there was over 400 frames for this book. So it was quite a lot of illustrating for Nico, but he did a fantastic job.
Oh, wonderful.
So you
That's
sort of block
good.
that out like a movie or a TV image for your
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah, so he did some storyboarding, but another thing that I found, well, because am not an illustrator, don't know how that artistic mind works, but also the layout for the book was important, and actually getting not double page spreads, but the however many panels you're going to put on that double page, and making sure that it comes to a logical sort of conclusion for that tiny part of the story when you're turning the page. And yeah, so there's a lot to illustration that I didn't know was there, and I've got even more respect for illustrators now.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. All right. 3 middle grade authors. Laurie's a teacher and a middle grade author. So I'm just going to say that there's a really, well, I've got about 5 questions. I've got about 50 questions. Let's go with this one. Has it become harder or easier to reach middle grade readers because kids are on their screens or they're doing other bits and pieces? And 8 to 12-year-olds, that is a busy growing time for bodies often, and it's an emotional time. It's potentially leaving, getting to the big fish in the small pond and then small fish in the big pond as they move to secondary school. So is it harder or easier? Let's go with you, Ingrid.
I think that's sadly, a great question. And in fact, for me, it came up just this morning. I was at a school doing sort of a belated author visit, and I won't name the school, but it was a wonderful school out of town. And a teacher said to me, and it's a very multicultural school, big school, the teacher said to me, because I was doing writing activities and I was talking about reading and writing, and they go hand in hand. If you want to become a better writer, you need to read a lot, and talking about books. And she took me sort of during the session while they were doing some writing, she said, they're terrified of writing, and they're terrified. In fact, they feel about reading the way we used to feel about maths. This is what she said to me.
I love maths.
There's always one in every crowd, Eileen.
There was one.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, yes, and they're not my words, but yes. But it was just really interesting, and it made me think of my own daughter, who I remember in probably year 9 or 8, she was struggling with reading some of the texts that they had to read. She said, "Mum, I can't focus for that long." And this is what's happening through no fault of hers or any of these students. These kids of this generation, and I addressed that with the students. I said, you're growing up on screens, and so you might find it difficult to sustain your focus or to hold your focus. But I know that with my daughter, she practiced and her focus grew quite quickly. So, but my point was more that was certainly the feedback I got. And in fact, with the writing, with enough sort of scaffolding and support and encouragement, and we did get writing. But that's just an experience from this morning in relation to that question.
Yeah, fantastic. Rosie, what about yourself?
Yeah, well, I think children definitely need scaffolding, and they definitely need to be encouraged to read more and more these days, because you are competing with screens, the streaming, the phone, which makes it transportable, the laptops, everything. So, and I often get asked, well, how can I, encourage my child to read? They suddenly get to a certain age and they don't want to read. So it's really just, as you said, like scaffolding, like even just buying them books that have movies that go with them, or looking up, certain books on YouTube and watching a bit on the screen, and then get him to integrate that with the reading. Buying books they're interested in. Graphic novels are fantastic. Comic books, anything just to get them reading, and helping them, that with that concentration. And, the books have to be, very catchy right from the start, so you can keep their interest, because what you're competing with.
Yeah. Before I go to Eileen, I'm going to share with you a statistic that a friend of mine was giving a lecture on radical listening, which is builds on active listening. But in 2000, the average time that you could sustain attention was 2 minutes. Guess what it was in 2025?
20 seconds, I would
30
think.
seconds.
47 seconds. That's
Me.
it. So
God.
that's it. On average, we can only focus, or people only focus on one thing for 47 seconds. Talk about having to grab people from the word go. So yeah, it is a challenge. It really is a challenge. So Eileen, harder or easier? And I'm going to say that the answer to
Science.
anything in our house is it's physics, because Ian and I both did sciences and maths, and none of our children did. You know, they all went off and did arts, and they're all drawers, and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
we say it's all the physics. And so they laugh at us now for saying that. But anyway, I'm with you. Tell us about middle grade, harder or easier?
Well, I think I am actually genuinely unqualified to answer this question because my teaching of children is science and it's not in a school setting. My own children love reading. My 12-year-old, her favorite special treat is to go to our local bookshop, which is brand new children's bookshop that a school vice principal and her sister-in-law started up 3 years ago. So that's her favorite treat. My other daughter, she likes just to get series of books and has them all. And my son's a great reader as well. So I can't really.
You can step out of that one. That is absolutely fine. Yeah, Laurie, do you want to throw another question at the crew here?
Oh, I definitely do. So with all of your books, we've already heard about some of the messaging that you're bringing through in those books. What do you think it is about middle grade itself? And I find middle grade is beautifully primed for this, to really bring those explorations out with your not even early readers. I mean, this is the younger kids who read really well to the older kids who don't read as well, but it's a great place to really launch the message that they're not alone, and that things are not perfect, and that's okay. So Rosie, how did you've mentioned quite a few themes actually. If you want to pick one or two, and why those ones?
Well, I guess the theme of empowering, facing your fears, because I've seen so many students that, suffer from anxiety, and that really holds them back. And it holds them back in everything that they do. So, and, just to show them through the story, that, you face something you're really scared about, and then you'll get a little bit braver, and then you'll get a little bit braver. And I just think that's really important for kids because it allows them to sort of reach what their potential. So that was that message. And as I said before, the belief in I can do attitude, like self-belief, is really important for kids too in this day and age. So that really comes out strong in the other main character. So yeah, I just had it through the actions of the characters. And I think kids, the problems that the protagonists encountered in the story, I think kids can really identify with. And, it's in a really relatable setting. The school is relatable to all kids, and all those things that they were facing, I think, is relatable to everyone. So, yeah, that's why I chose the setting as well, the school and teachers and schoolwork and, those sort of things.
Yeah. Ingrid?
A lot of crossover there with you, Rosie. Definitely like agency, courage. My protagonists, I always want them to get brave, and I realize that it's usually through connecting with other people, through connection, that often bolsters them. Because I love people, and because I believed in the power of connection, and for kids, having other people believe in them, that is just means so much. And so when Edie feels utterly alone at the start, because I made it intentional that not only does Bowie move away, but she goes completely silent, and Edie doesn't know why. And she's always looked up to Bowie. Bowie's the brave one, and Bowie's the one who would order at the fish and chips, or ask for free taste of ice cream. And so when Edie goes away and goes completely quiet, when Bowie does, Edie sort of turns away from her own reflection in the window, and she doesn't put her hand up as much in class, and it's only when she sort of meets another kid who happens to have lots of siblings, they start to connect. But then Edie's feels shame and embarrassment that she's so alone. She sort of says, "Is loneliness visible?" She felt it in her own useless sort of in her stance and her, and then that's why she sort of tells this lie. So I guess it's also about identity, which my stories always go into identity. There's always language. There's always a glossary at the back of my book. I'm fascinated with language. I'm obsessed. I've studied Italian. I just love it. And this one's got, so my songbird had a lot of Arabic. This one's got Samoan or Polynesian, and Polish and some Italian. I think that language is fascinating in terms of reflecting culture and being part of, who you are, and what certain, there's language choices that reveal values. And I really love that. I love that. Aleki invites Edie to church, and they sing together in Polynesian, and Edie feels terribly like an imposter because she doesn't speak the language and she doesn't know the song, and they all know the song, and they treat each other like family. There's this way of being with one another, and Edie feels her own sense of missing, and that is, she just wants to go home. She just feels more alone. It's only when she connects with her ancestry that she starts to feel like maybe there is more to her, and then she finds courage from that. I'm giving myself shivers. That's got to be I can't even remember the question, but yeah, sort of connection. What is family? The question of what is a family? She lives with her mum, but when she does a family tree, by the end, it's covered in, it's got the Polish flag, and her father, who has passed away, is on there, and her best friend Bowie is on there because they do reconnect. And so the question of what is family, and I'm still asking that question. I'm fighting
But
with
it is so important to us as human beings to know where our connections are and how we're related, and
how we choose those,
Yeah.
or choose when there may be a time when a connection is not healthy for us.
Yeah.
And it's very tricky for young people to navigate.
Yeah.
And they're thinking all the time, they're not conscious of what is a positive reflection of identity of themselves, but they might know how they feel. They might feel like they are themselves, and they feel good when they come away. And I always sort of used to tell my daughter, it's how do you feel after you spend time with that person? And I still do. She's 18, and it's still, and I say it to myself, and if you come away from time with someone and you kind of feel a bit like maybe that wasn't entirely authentic, or maybe there was a bit of a barb to something that was said, the older I get, the less time I have for that. And I think it's an interesting thing. I think it's an area of interest for young people because their peers are so critical. It's all about what their peers think and who they are and where they fit in, because that's that stage of life. And I love the middle grade stage. I love 8 to 12s. They're so sweet, and I don't. That sounds so patronizing.
No,
but
but it's true. Yeah.
So
They want to know. I love it.
yeah, they're wonderful to do author visits with, and get their ideas, and when they share all their writing, and they're fantastic. They're open, and then they get to year 7, they're a little bit more closed. They're beautiful. I love them all, but they're just starting to get a bit cooler.
can I just jump in there, because my book also explores what is a good friend. Like it has this, like, and it's like learning what a good friend is, and then how to treat a friend, and then how other people are not like your friend, like what you were saying, the other people don't make you feel good. So it really also explores the theme of how should you treat your friends, and what is a good friend. So yeah, I just want to add that in because that was with your theme about the, learning who's good for you and the people around you, the
And
relationship.
as you say, with everyone being so on their phones and on their technology and isolating themselves, that connection, I don't think they know how to make that connection. Eileen, with your classes that you do at basically when you're doing these amazing shows, what age groups are there specific targets with age groups that you're aiming at?
There are, because there are certain age groups that do astronomy as part of the curriculum. So it used to be all the odd years, like 1, 3, 5, 7. Now it is 2, 6, 7, and 10. What was done in year 3 is now done in year 6. What was done in year 5 is now done in year 2. Year 7 and 10 are around about the same with the new ones. So they're the classes that book in. So it's very specific to them.
And do you find that the different age groups really respond to things like your book, for example, with how to die in space, which I still love, and just the things that you're showing them?
Well, I can't do too much crossover with my book because that would be a little bit unethical, or what do they call it? Conflict of interest. But there are things I do discuss, like when we're talking about what a star is. There's a great scene. I loved it when I saw The Lion King, and they're all lying on the ground at night talking about what stars are, and then the warthog, who is quite gassy anyway, like the others are philosophizing and saying, they might be this, they might be that. My dad told me this, but he says, oh, I thought they were balls of gas burning millions of miles away. And that's exactly what stars are. And for the silly guy to have the scientific description, that's really good. And a lot of kids relate to that as well. And even the older grades, there's a constellation called Scorpius that in Maori, it's seen as Maui's fishhook. And so a lot of girls love Moana, like my 15-year-old still loves Moana. So that if I say, have you seen this movie? What was his magical thing? It wasn't a wand. What was it? And just really relating to things that the kids are into or can remember. I find that very useful as well. And I'm getting a lot more interactive. We've had quite a few teachers come rather than just astronomers coming, talking about astronomy. We've got some teachers coming in, and so they've got different ways of presenting things. So it's a lot more interactive. It's not just me telling the students stuff, it's me asking the students stuff, getting them to think about things with a bit of scaffolding, and then showing them amazing pictures as well. That's good. When you can do, like, it's a huge room with a curved dome, and when you can show this amazing picture taken by a $10 billion space telescope, then nothing beats that.
Yeah, that is just brilliant. Except if we were in space, Eileen, like beam me up right
but then
now.
You would die.
Oh, then I would die. That's true, unless I had my helmet and things on. Next question, and it's like so many questions, but let's switch over a little bit, because our readers do love the small practical details of how did you do it and what happens and those kind of things. So I'm going to ask you all a little bit about your writing routine, and you've all got multiple stories. So are you morning or evening people? Are you regular Monday to Fridays, or just whenever the thing takes you? Do you like a glass of wine, a glass of gin, a chocolate, or vegetables, or what is it that gets you in the right space, both headspace and physically? So Eileen, let's go with you.
Yeah, so I've got to take time when I can. My work is casual, and it can be on Saturdays and Sundays as well. So I don't have that regular sort of time, but I do find it very helpful when I have a business day that I'm not working, everyone's at school or at work, and then I can have the house to myself, and then I can because I like to talk as I type, and depending on what I'm writing, I might say the dialogue and look at my expression in the mirror, and take a breath and try it a different way. So it's best to do that when no one else is around.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Could be interpreted quite strangely. Yeah, well done. And so what's your favorite liquid or food to be having?
I just drink water.
Just water. Keep
It's a bit
hydrated.
dangerous though, because my desk is right next to the kitchen. We have this big open plan. So the fridge is not very many steps away.
Fair enough. Very good. Rosie, what about yourself? What puts you in the right frame?
Well, fitting it in around every life is often difficult, but I love it when there's a day where I know that, okay, I can write, and I go for a swim, or I have like an ice bath, which I love, and then I feel really refreshed, and I love, my mind's really awake, and I sit down and I love it because I'm so wide, and yeah, I really love that time. And then I like to read over, say, a chapter on my phone, and then I play it in my headphones and go for a walk and just hear it in my head, which I really like to do. Yeah, and that's, and then sometimes late at night when it's absolutely dead quiet everywhere, and I sit up and I will then listen to it again or read over it again. I really like doing that when there's just everything's so quiet. Yeah,
fantastic. Ingrid?
It depends a bit on at what stage of the manuscript I'm at, but definitely, when I'm just in that, I haven't shown it to anyone and I'm writing those early drafts and rewriting, etc. I have that real clarity of mind in the early morning. I just find there's just such a difference to the quality of your mind and your perception. So yeah, I tend to work in 45-minute blocks. And so, if I'm really crazy about the manuscript, but I don't have to drag myself to the desk, I will just turn up. But if it's hard going, which it very often is, let's be frank, well, it is for me, then my goal on a clear day, so in the evenings, I'm an academic life coach, so I work with secondary students doing coaching online. So if I have days where it's like, oh, I've got free space, my ideal is like 4 45-minute blocks, which is actually quite a lot. It's kind of, that's like stop the clock to get a cup of tea. I'm just kind of, that's what works for me. And I know everyone's different. And, some people work well in like 20-minute blocks or 2 hours or, so I know that for me, I can do 45 and the clock will stop and I'll be like, okay.
Get away from the computer.
Yes.
Goals. I can tell you a coach there. You set your goals, achieve, move on. Okay, beautiful.
Yep.
Laurie, your
I
shot.
procrastinate. Speaking of, so you've all now finished many books, one book. It doesn't even really matter. What have you learned about yourselves and your writing styles, perhaps, or what have you learnt through the editing process or getting that feedback from your editors that you've now put into your next ideas and your next pieces of work? Ingrid, do you want to keep going?
I guess the biggest takeaway that one must learn is that talent isn't enough and perseverance is everything. And I certainly, I do say when I visit schools, that, you get better at writing by writing and reading, and there are no shortcuts. But if you do that writing, you will get better. So I guess, and I really found in my experience of writing Edie, where I was already contracted. I was contracted on a synopsis. I had 2-book deal for Edie Tells the Lie and my next book, which is called My Brother Otto, coming out in February. And the thing was, I'd given these, I got the 2-book deal based on a synopsis of each one. Sometimes you just want the comfort of a contract, you like to go, okay, that's what I'm doing. But I don't want to do that again, because then I had to go back. I was really inspired when I came up with the ideas and had fleshed them out in the story, and then I had to go back and write them. And that's not always, it doesn't always go the way you thought it might, and you might not, but what I learned was, because there were so many times when I was writing Edie Tells the Lie that I really had to force myself stay and overcome the challenges that I was finding with the structure, and really some really sort of quite big aspects of the story, and keeping the story at the forefront and keeping it moving along. I did learn that if you stick at it, it will come good. And I really, because I know a lot of writer friends, I know a lot of times, people might abandon a manuscript and park it and go, I realized it wasn't going to come to life. I felt like that over and over, but I kept going. And I really learned this lesson. And I tell people, like, if you keep going, it may well actually, like, eventually I just felt it lift off. And I felt that lift off that you need to find. And until then, it just wasn't lifting off. And I was having conversations with my writers group and with my partner, and just the story and what's going on and why don't I feel it? Where is it? Where is it? And then I'd try this and try that and make changes to the story, make changes to when things happened. And then I remember saying to my partner, I think I've broken its back. I've cracked it, I've cracked it. But point being that I learned that, it really can pay off to keep going.
Okay. Well, Eileen, you also had a similar sort of kick off, in the sense that you were told, here's your idea, go for it. How on earth, where did you go from there?
It just a lot of my stuff happens organically, and I just thought, well, what's it like? And I just started with someone thinking about all the different environments and what happens if I go there, and how can I go there? And I just found it really interesting. A lot of the research that had been done, and like just what happens if you are just exposed to the elements on Earth, like really, really cold, and what actually happens to your body physically. And so there were lots of different things like mountaineering. I was reading things about that. I was also reading some research papers from NASA from like the very first astronauts and like what happened in the first spacewalk and all that sort of stuff. Even watching Top Gear.
Oh,
There was this bit where this
Oh.
one episode where
Wow.
they put Clarkson in this chamber, like I think it's for when divers get the bends or whatever, and they extracted the oxygen and they were getting him to just do a very simple thing, like just putting a square peg in a square hole. That's all he had to do. And without the oxygen, he couldn't do it. And he was just laughing at himself. And I thought, if I have to choose a way to go, it's going to be oxygen deprivation because I want to be happy when it happens. Yeah, so like everything can feed into it. And sometimes I'm doing something and I think, wow, if I wasn't doing this thing at this exact moment, I wouldn't have had that idea. So I'm so glad that whoever it was interrupted me or needed a lift somewhere or whatever it was, because that's when the ideas occur.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
fantastic. I feel like your mind is like a huge field and the flowers are springing up to life everywhere you go.
Yeah, it feels like that. Like there are some times when you're brainstorming, you can just feel all these new ideas coming. I think, yeah, this is how it works. And then you've got the having to then write the story. So like Ingrid, after she had her inspiration and got the contracts for the books, and then now I've got to write it. Yeah.
And Rosie, so debut book.
Yeah, so I've been
What
on a
have you
real
learned?
Congratulations.
Yeah. So what have you
Yeah.
learned?
Well, I've learnt so much. You know, I had learnt, first of all, I learnt that I had to sort of learn the craft of how to write. And that's something you just, you know, the whole world of, so I did some courses. And so I was on that journey for a while, like just learning things like point of view and effective dialogue and pacing and all those things. And then to sit down and start writing and then getting an editor and then rewriting. And the point is just perseverance. I've just learned that it's the people, I think, that do, you know, get books published and create the book are the people that stick at it. So I guess my big thing I've learned is you have to really love it, because otherwise you won't stay the course. You know, when
Yes.
it's not easy. You've got to love it, and you've got to really it changes all the time. Like when you look at what your first draft was to what your finished product was, you know, and you've got to be thick-skinned, and you've got to be able to take on your criticism that someone gives you and change it. And, you know, it's really deflating when you've done all this work and someone says, well, you know, you have to leave that chapter out, or you're like, oh, that was so much work. So
you darling,
yeah, it's just learning all those things, but definitely the perseverance is the main thing. And yeah, just that's my big thing. You've got to love what you're doing.
Absolutely. And let's face it, none of us are going to make a living out of it necessarily, unless we had other things like puppets and improv. So, Rosie, let's stick with you. The best writerly advice you were ever given, and who gave it to you, you know, who helped you kind of in those early days?
Well, I think it was the advice of go and learn the craft. That was really helpful. And I had a bit of a mentor who was who did editing, and she was really just kept telling me to keep going. Don't give up, you know. And so yeah, that really went inside and made me think, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to get this book finished and I'm going to polish it and it's going to get published. So yeah, I think that was it. And I think the other thing was the best advice was, love what you write, and, you know, love what you're doing, love the topic. You know, some people write memoirs and some people write for, you know, something that's cathartic, but you know, you've got to love being in the mind of, so I love being in the mind of a 12-year-old. So says a lot about me. But,
I'm not saying anything.
So yeah, and some people write textbooks, you know, but loving what you're writing is really important too. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Eileen, best writerly advice you were ever given? And
It's probably, I was working with the editor, her name's Nicola Robinson, and she edited my first Kitten Caboodle book. And I always like had her editorial voice in my head, everything I've written since then. It's like, is this progressing the story? You know, is this necessary? Because I wrote this I thought it was a fantastic chapter about this cat making itself a sardine milkshake, and that didn't progress the story, so that has to go. Yeah, it's just keeping that in mind. So I always hear her voice in my head when I'm writing and thinking, does this go in or does it need to be removed?
Fantastic. Good advice, Ingrid.
There's one that I love that was not in my early stages, but I have to share because it's so good.
Yeah,
And
go
that
for
was
it.
from a book by Jerry Saltz, called How to Be an Artist. Anyway, one of his, and it's a brilliant book actually, a small book, and one of his little quotes was, "Make an enemy of envy." And he says, "Do it now, do it tonight." And the point being, of course, no one likes to think of themselves as envious. No one likes that quality in ourselves, but it's not even necessarily that, like if you see that on social media or wherever that other people have won awards, or, you know, and what it can do is well, certainly for me, make me feel like, oh, I should be doing more. And it is a feeling akin to envy, but I don't want to be mean to myself by saying that, and because it's a very human response to it. But by saying make an enemy of envy, and it really helped me because I went, you just love, like, really just be really positive, because these are often friends, you know, and just go pretend it's your daughter, you know, and how would you feel then? So that was really great. But another one that I think it was Maria Takalanda said, and she said, but probably may not have come from her, but it's the quote that is, the difference between writers and non-writers is that writers write.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's just that thing, like you're saying, Rosie, it's just the perseverance and just writing, and yeah.
Keeping on, keeping on.
Keeping on,
Yeah.
just do more writing, and if
Yeah.
if that manuscript doesn't get published,
Yeah.
you're doing your work, your 10,000 hours, you're getting better, you're
Mm.
learning all the time.
Yeah.
Like writing begets writing, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. I was actually just going to go into then. So what would be what's your next goal? What are you looking at for the next 12 months? What's your next moves when it comes to books? If you can give us a hint. You might not be able to, that's okay. But if you can give us a hint, Eileen.
So I've got a sequel coming out, 50 Ways to Die in the Ocean.
Awesome.
That was tricky because no one's going to go to space. No one's going to die there in any of these ways. But we're Australia. We go to the beach. So I had to be really careful with this one. And so that's being illustrated. So my bit there's done. And I'm also working on the sequel to the sequel, which is 50 Ways to Die in the Jurassic. So I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole, a research rabbit hole at the moment, even looking to see what insects were around in the Jurassic that, you know, may have produced an anaphylactic reaction if they bit or stung someone. So looking at that sort of thing, which is kind of hard because I'm not a paleontologist, so I do ring up paleontologists and they go, "Why on earth do you want to do that?" And then I explain and they're like, "Oh, okay."
That's fantastic. Oh, Ingrid?
I mentioned before, I've got my next book, My Brother Otto, which is very different to my other books, but it's also a middle grade book coming out in February. I've just finished the copy edit, the line edits for that.
Well done.
Just send in the acknowledgements. You know, anything else you need? No, good. You can read it. I like the cover. Happy days. So that's coming out in February, and look, for a while, to be honest, and let's just but I'm just joking. But to be honest, I really enjoy nonfiction. Narrative nonfiction is something that I've wanted to do. I have written a memoir called Serenade for a Small Family, and I did enjoy really writing in my own true voice, and I feel like I'm practicing that. I have ideas, but nothing sort of concrete. but I'm just writing pieces at the moment. But I suspect I'll keep doing children's as well. And I love that at the moment I'm not flooded with ideas. I'm in this space, kind of floaty space, where I don't have an idea going, write me. So so I'm starting to become a counselor, and I'm doing this coaching, and so that's taking a priority. That way I can enjoy my work and get paid consistently, which is nice.
That's a nice thing.
Yeah. So that's me.
And Rosie?
Well, even though my book has a resolution, satisfying resolution, I've left it open for another book in the series. And you create this world and these characters, and then I sort of feel like I'm missing my characters a bit, and I'm missing the world that I've created, like the school and the teachers and everything. So I think I've got some ideas to go back and write another book in the series. And I also have a picture book that I have would like to, I'm just working on too. So yeah, two things. Yeah.
Fantastic.
This is good. So we've got towards the end of our time, sadly. I had about 6 more questions that I really wanted to ask you, but we do have to get on with our lives. Eileen, final words for potential readers or writers.
Yeah, I think as readers, that we all do this. We continue with books that we don't really feel that we are vibing with, and just don't. Just stop. There are, I mean, you might feel a bit guilty towards that author. Just don't write a bad review about it.
No, just take it off your Goodreads, which I removed one today. I thought, I'm not going to read that, and I'll just take it off, so they'll never know that I started it.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's too short to read bad stories.
Exactly. It's way too short. It's too short to do stuff that doesn't vibe with you. So yeah. And I mean, if a book's not vibing with you, maybe persist with it, because you obviously had a fabulous idea at one point and then you're just getting a bit stuck. But yeah, reading someone else's work, you don't need to finish it.
Good words. Yeah. Ingrid, what have you got for us?
I would say that even though writing is very much a craft, and that you hone that craft by doing a lot of work, and working with an editor is a gift, and that's a privilege, and I've certainly learned how to write for middle grade by Jane Pearson at Text. It's been a collaboration in my early books, but I would say that writing is playing with words and ideas, and when you sit down at the page, don't worry about it being good or great. Just let it be what it is, and be playful with it, and try and hold it lightly.
I like that.
Beautiful, nice.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, Rosie, now that you've heard all those fabulous words, what have you got for
I
us?
was just thinking about for a reader, like, I really do believe don't battle on with the book, exactly. And you'll always find something, don't pick the thickest book, pick something. It can be the lightest read there possibly is, and just read that for enjoyment. After a heavy day's work, you're not going to want to read a big, thick book. And even with kids, graphic novels are great, comics are great. And, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, a little bit of text, a picture. Don't give a child a big, thick book with really dense text if they're a reluctant reader. Just let them read for enjoyment, to get some meaning. And once they're getting the meaning, then they'll enjoy the story. And reading is reading. It doesn't really matter what, as long as they're getting the meaning and they're enjoying it. And I guess that goes over for writing too. Like, if you're writing what you love, eventually it'll jump up and spring up, and you'll feel like, I've nailed it.
Yeah.
It'll come up.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, that's good.
And we need to finish up on where do we find you?
Yes.
Best place online to be found, Rosie?
Well, I'm working on a website at the moment, but I'm Rosie Reads on Instagram. That's where I am at the moment.
Right.
Ingrid.
Cool.
IngridLaguna.com website, Ingrid Laguna on Instagram. I'd love to hear from people. I'd love you to buy my books, mostly. And yeah, that's me. And bookshops, yes.
And bookshops, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And online.
Yes. Eileen.
So I'm having a lot of fun with Instagram at the moment. So I'm Eileen O Bookworm, and I also have my website, eileenohely.com.
Oh, fantastic. And I just have to ask really quick if I can squeeze this in. I'm sorry if people are waiting with their dinner. So, Ingrid, tell me about Wallace and Laguna Improv
Yes. So much
very
fun.
quickly. And Eileen, I want you to tell me about puppets. So go.
Super quickly, Adam Wallace is a writer. We've both done a lot of improvisation comedy courses and we love it. And what we think is wonderful about it is the value of failing. So you come out of an improv session bulletproof, fearless. How great is that for writing? So what we do, we go into schools and we alternate improv games and activities where people fail, make mistakes, and we go again. And then in between, we get them writing. Gold.
Love it.
It's like happy fail.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Nice pitch. Eileen,
Well,
puppets.
I came up with the puppets because I don't know if anyone's ever tried to read a graphic novel to someone, but it's very hard to do. And my characters don't have names. And it's just easier to have a big digital spread of the book up there so everyone can enjoy Nico's artwork. And then I've got my little characters talking like, oh, twinkle, twinkle,
That
little
is
star, I
brilliant.
want to go to space. Don't go there, you will die. Yeah, so I find that
Okay.
works
Yeah,
really
you've
well.
hooked me.
Yeah, I can see it. Absolutely wonderful. All right. So thank you to our fabulous middle grade. I'm going to call you a panel or crew because
yes,
you've been fabulous contributors here today. So Eileen O'Hely, 50 Days to Die in Space. Rosie Schonell, Breaking School Rules is Easy. And Ingrid Laguna, Edie Tells a Lie. So that's not bad for the end of a fabulous session talking all about all of these things. When we finish, we love to say, remember to read more Aussie books. If you could do that with us, that would be brilliant. So remember to
Read
more
Aussie
books.
books.
Yay! And jump on the website and buy these fabulous books
Yes.
or scroll through all of the
Get
other
them
middle
in your
graders.
school libraries as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
If you borrow them from the library, that works just as well. So
Yep.
thank you to everybody and good night to my co-host, Laurie
Good night,
Bell.
Veronica,
Thank you for
and
another fabulous chat.
farewell for now.
Let's meet again when magic happens.